Okay, folks, here we are talking about this new moon in Gemini that's happening on June 25th, 2025. It says storms bring truth. You see that outline of Shiva there because he's the ruler of Ardra Nakshatra. As you can see in that chart, the upper right hand corner, Moon, Jupiter, and Sun in Ardra Nakshatra. And that's related to Lord Rudra or Lord Shiva, and it's in the sign of Gemini. Now, of course, this is based on the sidereal zodiac, where Aries and Ashwini are at the start of the zodiac circle. Every Vedic astrology text says this very clearly. It's called the Nirayana chakra, or the circle without the ayana or the seasons added. And so when you start Aries and Ashwini at the beginning, then by the time you get to this point in the sky at about 10 degrees of Gemini, you have the nakshatra Ardra and the Rashi, or the sign of Gemini. So it says storms, which is Ardra or Rudra, and Shiva's energy brings truth, which is Gemini. Gemini is the truth tellers of the zodiac, the power of honest words, rough waters, but clear vision. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to get notified of updates. If you like this style of videos, leave a comment and share it with others as well. And we'll just start and jump right in now. So again, this new moon happens in Gemini. The new moon happens when the sun and moon come together. And this is following the recent full moon that happened in Scorpio. Then the moon goes around the zodiac and comes together with the sun at 9:40, about 10 degrees of Gemini. So Gemini is the sign that's ruled by Mercury. It's a dual sign, a dual air sign, and Mercury is the speaker and the one who brings in discrimination and facts and dispassion, detachment. This is really what Mercury brings. When we have detachment, we have discrimination. When we have a lot of emotion and passion and desire, we lose our discrimination. There's nothing wrong with emotion, passion, desire. But discrimination it implies that there's neutrality, equanimity of mind. And Mercury is one of the neutral planets. Saturn is the other one. And Mercury is neutral like a child is neutral. And you want to look at neutral as not being like masculine or feminine. The neuter is actually one of the genders. Feminine, which is the moon and Venus, want to enjoy and experience happiness. The masculine planets, Mars, Jupiter, and the sun, want to accomplish things. The neuter planets, Saturn and Mercury, aren't charged with that sort of goal. They want to just see the truth. Mercury is neutral like a child is neutral, which hasn't really made up his mind yet. And Saturn is neutral like an old person is neutral, where we've kind of been there and seen all of that, and all of that passion is kind of beaten out of us a little bit. So Mercury has that sort of charge of a child that is just trying to figure things out, that sort of playful innocence. But just like children can be frank and outspoken, as it says here, the power of honest words, you got to be careful around kids because they'll say some honest things, even if they're not welcome. I remember when I was a kid, and I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I had learned not to say things that are rude and whatnot. And my mom, her boyfriend at the time, had a very young son. My parents divorced, and her boyfriend had a very young son. His name was Donnie. And he was like about 5 or 6 years old. He didn't have any filter, and he really didn't have a filter. And I remember we were on a bus one time, and this very heavy man walked by, and Donnie went, "Dad, look at the fat man," right? Like, and we all laughed kind of under our breath a little bit, but children have that kind of unfiltered look at things. They don't know. Now, again, as we get older, we learn to watch what we say, and that we don't have to be honest about every single thing. We can mix it with compassion. But as it says here, rough waters, clear vision. The part of Gemini that is connected to Ardra is that part that will take on untruth and battle against untruth, particularly when it's taking us away from Dharma and, again, higher wisdom. Ardra is ruled by Lord Shiva, who is the god of Dharma and truth. There are 3 nakshatras in each zodiac sign, and in Gemini, you have the first section is Mrigashira, which means deer head. The middle section is Ardra, which is related to Lord Shiva. And then the last section, which leads into Cancer, is called Punarvasu. I'll talk about that in a second. But before I do, I actually wanted to just let you know, if you haven't gotten it yet, you can go to jupiterwebinar.com and get the Jupiter in Gemini transit for your sign, because as you can see here, not only is this new moon in Gemini, but it's actually joined Jupiter, and they're all in Ardra Nakshatra. So right now, we're seeing this Jupiter, these teachings and guru and higher wisdom also being very challenged. And for each of the 12 signs, including yours, this Jupiter transit through Gemini is bringing a deeper connection to questioning your dogmatic beliefs. And I did a very powerful teaching on this Jupiter transit through Gemini, and where you can get greater insight into your beliefs. You just go to jupiterwebinar.com and register, and you get this teaching. I'm opening it up again. It's an actual recording, and I talk about not just for your sign, but the recent history and the way to really understand Jupiter in Gemini for this next year, because Jupiter is also going to be in Gemini through May of 2026. So to continue, this section of Gemini Ardra is the section where you see there's this lightning and these storms, where it says rough waters, clear vision. This is a very interesting way to put the Ardra and then Punarvasu, the next nakshatra, energy. It's not necessarily rough waters, but it's the storm, the stormy Ardra nature. Because again, ideas in Gemini are there to be questioned and challenged, and particularly when ideas violate Dharma and truth, then Ardra is where we fight against it. And for example, again, this is where we need to choose our battles wisely, choose our words wisely. We don't need to be, quote, honest about every single thing. I mean, we have to be honest, but we don't have to say everything, right? We don't have to say everything that comes into our head. And, you know, there's this, you know, I have a lot of planets in Gemini. So when I was younger, I had this I had to work through some of this kind of, you know, just telling you the truth, just honest truth, just being honest. And many times I wasn't just being honest. It was an excuse to be, you know, harsh and critical. And I had to learn to mix honesty with compassion and things that you don't need to say. And it's not because you're being dishonest, but it's just not necessary, or to say the same thing in a way that will be much more effective. But then there's also when ideas need to be confronted and challenged and pushed back on. Ardra is the nakshatra, where if someone has planets in Ardra, they will be that really outspoken Shiva truth teller, where Shiva is where we're trying to destroy the dharma, the thing that is not true, and the thing that is harming those who want to know the truth. By the way, this is one of the, I've been that kind of truth teller in my work and in my career over the years, particularly against certain teachings. And you might see it at times when I speak out against, for example, the zodiacs is a very good example. The whole cadre of astrologers that have spoken about how Vedic astrology is also tropical, and we can do that, and the Indians made mistakes and didn't understand about the zodiacs and this kind of stuff. Or now currently with things like the yugas, I see this everywhere now. This has become the new thing. Oh, we're about to enter the Sat Yuga. No, we're not. And so I'll be one who will open his big mouth and say something when it comes to things like this, because these truths are worth defending. And sadly, I'm one of the few who do it. I'm not trying to make myself sound like a martyr, but especially, like, for example, when things are going on with the zodiac debates, I see like a million sidereal Vedic astrologers, and none of them would say anything except me. I try to get them to speak out, and I mean all the famous ones that they would never go on in public. Oh no, I don't want people yelling at me on the internet, so I'm not going to say anything, right? So then I wind up being the only one, and then it looks like it's me against these 10 people who are trying to prove tropical zodiac or something. So many people won't stick their neck out and just speak the truth, right? And Ardra is that truth teller. Gemini especially, I mean Gemini is the sign, but Ardra is that sort of not just truth teller, but first, once we see the truth, we want to make sure it's known, and we're willing to fight and defend the truth, right? But then we also need to put it into practice. It's not just ideas. And again, this is the thing about Gemini as well, is it's ruled by Mercury, Vishnu, who is very much about manifestation. It's not just battling through ideas. If it is, then it's a waste. It's also disciplined actions, especially through things like mantra and spiritual practices connected to elevating the ideas in our mind. Because it's not just about challenging, beliefs and teachers, gurus who don't know what they're saying or who don't know what they're doing, but it's then about putting into practice and showing the real truth. Like, for example, if something about zodiacs or whatever, or just spiritual practices or whatever. So Ardra is very thorough in this context as well, because it's in Gemini. For example, I did a whole teaching about the yugas. I didn't just come out and get angry about it. Again, and this is what we have to be careful of in Ardra. So I'm also saying this. Ardra is where we can just get angry about things and want to lash out, but then not do the homework and be thorough and show the real truth. Do the work. Show the real truth. Just like you see that picture of Shiva here, this silhouette of Shiva up there, Ardra, Rudra, Shiva, he's very cool-headed. He's not angry. He's not going crazy. Now, again, in this form of Rudra, he is a fierce entity. So again, you could say, well, yeah, but this is the entity where he's fierce and going crazy. He'll go crazy to destroy what needs to be destroyed, because that takes a kind of crazy, actually the word Rudra as the storm god also means like howler, like howling, like whoa. So it takes that, it can have that kind of like savage, primal, instinctive energy. That's like the source. But ultimately, it's contained within the Shiva frame, which is in this sort of calm and peaceful meditating entity. And you see here, I'm also doing these 2025 major shift updates. We now have Saturn in Pisces, where he's going to be until June of 2027, dissolving structure. That's going to be different for every person. Jupiter, again, as we see here, is in Gemini, expanding ideas, expanding teachings, beliefs, May 15th until May of 2026. And Rahu and Ketu just changed signs, May 30th until November of 2026, serving culture or king. We have seen here recently with this Mars-Ketu conjunction in Leo, all kinds of, we've had these new wars going on and this bombing and all this kind of stuff happening right as Ketu just went into Leo, joined Mars. But Rahu is also in Aquarius now, so we're very much focusing on the cultural implications of these things. So again, if you want me to take a look at your chart here, you can go and register at My 2025 Vedic Astrology. You see the link down there. And again, it's a way for you to see how these major shifts will affect you, because they're going to be affecting you whether you know it or not. So that intense Ardra Shiva focus is very much about bringing clear vision. Once we have the stormy or rough waters, let's say that stormy purging of false teachings or ideas in Ardra, then we have the clear vision. And that's what the nakshatra of Punarvasu is, the nakshatra after Ardra. Punarvasu literally means return of the light, return of the goodness, return of the wisdom. And it's symbolized by a very beautiful, clear day after the storm. If you've ever seen, and if you've ever noticed after a storm, the sky is very crisp and clear. The clouds have dissipated. The sun and the sky take on a very beautiful, again, crisp, clean, energized feeling. Like there's not a prana in the air. So this return of the light is the last part of Gemini, the last section, which also leads into the sign of Cancer. So again, we'll have the moon in Ardra on the 25th, and then on the 26th, the moon will go into Purnarvasu. That's what the nakshatras are. They're the 27 different, what are called lunar mansions, where the moon goes each day. The nakshatras show the very close approximate motion of the moon. Every day it goes into a new nakshatra. There are 27 of them. And then overlaced on those 27 nakshatras are the 12 zodiac signs. So every zodiac sign is a composite of 3 nakshatras, right? And certain nakshatras bridge 2 signs, and some nakshatras are just fully in 1 sign. So again, this nakshatra of Ardra is fully in the sign of Gemini. And if Gemini is more akin to any sign, any nakshatra or energy, it's that Ardra energy, because the first nakshatra, Mrigashira, starts in Taurus. It's half in Taurus, half in Gemini. And the last nakshatra, Punarvasu, is mostly in Gemini, but then the end is in Cancer, so it's a mixture. But this one, Ardra, is right in the middle of Gemini. So Gemini is more like Ardra and Shiva and this kind of stormy truth teller than it is anything else. So when people have a lot of planets in Gemini, this is something they need to watch for, or any planet in Ardra especially. So again, the real power here is the power to really see the truth, speak the truth courageously, but we always need to be careful not to overstate and pick fights where we need to settle down a little bit more. Because again, we can just be thinking that we know the truth, but we haven't really examined it We can't really explain it. We can't really understand it. It's just actually fueled by our beliefs. And we think our beliefs are some truth. Again, notice the difference, because again, this is also the Jupiter influence. Now with Jupiter in Gemini, like I said earlier, with Jupiter in Gemini and this shifting of planets here, in this Gemini, this Jupiter in Gemini shift, rather, it's a time where we're examining our beliefs, because this is where we're in many ways the most kind of ignorant. And so again, as you can see what Jupiter in Gemini will mean for you, jupiterwebinar.com, because again, Jupiter is now in Gemini, and it's time for our beliefs to be shattered or destroyed, and or at least tempered with the intelligence and discrimination and even the kind of brutality of Ardra, that brutal truth. And this is why Jupiter can have a difficult time in Gemini, because Jupiter is where we're comforted by our beliefs. No one wants our beliefs to change, as much as you might say, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, great. Let me try to change one of your beliefs. Let me change what you already believe and see how much you really appreciate it. This is why Sam, the truth teller, some people like it. A lot of people don't. Because who are you to tell me that my beliefs are wrong? I believe this. I learned this from these gurus and these teachers, and I like them. I like them better than you. So who are you to tell me they're wrong? Well, I don't care how much you like them or how much you believe them. It could still be wrong. By the way, let's use an example, things like the flat earth and stuff. There's all kinds of terrible teachings right now. And, I've had friends who believe the earth is flat and stuff like that, and it doesn't matter. And again, if I just try to tell them it's not and they're stupid, well, that's not very effective. But you can show them and prove it to them and show it to them, but that doesn't mean they want to see it. That doesn't mean they want to be disproven. No, they want to keep believing what they want to believe. And I say I'm talking about you. And me, we all do. So right now, Jupiter in Gemini and in Ardra, especially right now, is also being pressured in that regard. So as I said, if you enjoy this video, please make sure to subscribe, get notified of upcoming updates, and leave a positive comment. That really helps as well. And we'll talk to you soon. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the AstroVed certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.